Good evening, very warm welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our usual Monday night roundup here, as mentioned, on the West Yorkshire Football Show. I'm Chris Bell. I'm joined as ever by our regular faces, our resident correspondents, Stephen Downes, Lewis Sale, Gareth Walker, and Dave Foy. How are we, everyone? You all right?
Great.
Absolutely superb.
Knackered.
Tired yet?
We're really energetic tonight on this show.
It's going to be interesting to get through this, it's fair to say. We were all together last night. We got together at Jay's house, who sadly can't be with us tonight, for the England game. Some of us had later nights than others, it's fair to say. But all in all, including the result, it was a really good night. And you know, to be honest, let's be honest, we haven't actually got together as a group in person that often. So it was nice to see each other in person for a change, rather than as we are now virtually on the screens.
We got to see everybody in 3D. It's great for me. My eyesight. Brilliant.
So let's start then by taking a bit of a look back at the previous 7 days across our area, which, I'll be honest, I don't imagine will take too long with how little has gone on for a lot of our West Yorkshire clubs in recent days, before we take a look at England and the Euros a little bit later on. So we'll start, Steve, with you and Huddersfield Town. I mean, it's almost another week with nothing concrete to actually talk about or announce, really, sadly, for Huddersfield.
No, nothing concrete. To be fair, there's no rumours really either, Chris. This new regime of Nago, Edwards, and Cartwright, particularly this summer, are very good at keeping things under the hats. So, you know, there's very little rumours. There are two rumours that are more substantial than anything, apart from the J. Rodriguez one that was earlier in the summer, was a lad at Lincoln. Obviously, you know him really well,
Yeah.
Sorensen. That's just come out today. And Alfie May at Charlton, the striker. And to be fair, if we got both those players, that'd be a really good start. But it's a bit frustrating to see Rotherham and all these other clubs sort of signing players, but I suppose you just have to trust that we're doing it well behind the scenes and getting people signed on the dotted line, and it's all, you know, being done professionally, really.
Yeah, it's one of them. There are some clubs that have signed a lot more than others in kind of the recent weeks. As you say, Rotherham have basically been non-stop since, well, I was about to say since the transfer window opened. It's officially only been open a matter of days, hasn't it? They've been cracking on and doing the business since the season finished, pretty much, getting players signed and done on Bosman's. As I say, it's been a lot slower for Huddersfield. You mentioned, I'm going to mention Lasse Sorensen, who, I mean, you asked my views on him, and I gave you quite a blunt reply. I'm not going to lie. You can take quite a long walk off a rather short pier for all I care about you getting Lasse Sorensen. He's a cracking right back, but annoyingly, excuse me, from my perspective, he's got a year left in his contract, so there's a fair chance.
Yeah, there is another
somewhere in this window, and of course, as we were talking about before we came on air, he was at Stoke City before Lincoln, so therefore knows Mark Cartwright quite well, I imagine.
Yeah, and probably Michael Duff as well, to be honest. Obviously, they're part of the same Beswick Sport agency group. And, you know, we do have this history of going down that line, Chris. So I know that you'll be gutted to lose him. If he did sign for Town, I don't know much about him, to be honest, because of the fact that I haven't watched a lot of League One football over the last couple of years. Obviously, I've heard the name because of his time at Stoke, so I do know he's a decent player. And you know, I know he'd probably work in our system because, as we know, Michael Duff does play a sort of a 3-5-2 sort of system.
He's
very
much a right wing back.
Yeah, there's another lad as well. I'm just trying to find his name.
Right. Whilst you're finding the name, I can go to Gaz and to Lewis actually on this, because at one point last season, both of you saw Lincoln City games in which Lasse Sorensen played in. I think for Gaz, it was the Accrington Stanley game and I can't remember what it was called at the time, Papa John's Bristol Street Motors JPT Johnston's Bank Trophy. And Lewis, you saw him away at Derby County with me when I dragged you to Derby County just before Christmas. So, and actually, Lou, I'll come to you because I remember you mentioning Lasse Sorensen quite a lot on there. And from a neutral's perspective, you seem impressed with him.
Yeah, he stood out for me. Like I say, we're kind of similar to Downsy, where I've not seen a massive amount of him, but I've seen enough to realise that he's a very good player. And like I say, in a right system with a right manager, it wouldn't surprise me if he kind of either stayed on at Lincoln, signed a contract, or he goes to a club with no kind of a pedigree of a Huddersfield at the moment, with the tags of hoping to go straight back up. Obviously, from Lincoln's perspective, I want to get the right price tag for him because he's probably one of a really valuable asset. But yeah, I mean, he's quick. He's an engine up and down that right flank. He'll get you goals. He'll defend well. Yeah. You know what? There's worse signings you could get at Town. He might not be well known to a lot of Town fans, but actually, when you probably do a bit of research, you'll be impressed if you get him.
24-year-old as well, Chris, obviously sort of coming up to his prime. So I get why you'd be a bit gutted to lose him. Apparently one of your best guys last season. Yeah. The other lad, I found his name. I apologies on the first name. It's IIRC or LIRC and then ERHAHON. Erahon?
Wait, are we on about Ethan Erahon?
Yeah, Ethan Erahon, that was it, yeah.
Wait, is this another Lincoln player that you're linked with here?
Yeah, that's both them, Chris, have been linked very heavily with us tonight.
I mean, if Ethan Erahon ends up with you, I will be staggered, and that's no disrespect to Huddersfield, but end of last season, like there was talking going to Championship sides for £1.5 to £2 million. Yeah. So I mean, he has got years on his contract. He has got years on his contract though, so he's not going to go on the cheap. Whereas Sorensen's obviously got that 1 year left.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think I'm going to be able to continue with this podcast if you get both of them from Lincoln, because you are just going to be so smug. It'll be.
I won't be smug. I won't be smug at all, but because, like I said, I don't know how good they are. They've been two of your best players this season. I think the Sorensen's more. That rumour's more stable than the other one.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if what you're saying that we are interested in both. And apparently we're going to be paying £1 million for Alfie May from Charlton. So it seems like Nagel's going to go spend some money. And we did say at the end of last season, I think on the Town podcast, maybe not this Monday night show, but if Town are going to do well next season, they need to be going and getting the best players from these League One clubs, and that sort of stamping a statement down in the division and saying, look, we are the big fish, we are going to spend the money, and you are going to come to the John Smith Stadium. So yeah, apart from that, Chris, not a lot, if I'm being honest. But that was something at least. I've exactly given 3 minutes.
Yeah, we've covered a few minutes there. And just to be fair, I just want to touch again, as you say, it certainly does seem, as we kind of suspected he would do whatever happened, that Nagel is putting his money where his mouth is. And if he does, fair play to him, full credit to him for doing so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think he keeps coming out on Twitter saying that we're gonna be sort of heavy-handed in the market. Basically, we're going to go after the players that we want to go for, and that suggests to me that, I mean, he put his hand in his pocket in January. It's just a shame.
Yeah, he did.
Those lads, some of those lads didn't work out. I expect Reece Healy to be, if we can keep him fit, to be one of the best strikers in the league. If I'm honest, it's just about keeping him fit. But Reece Healy and Alfie May up top could be a bit of a tasty partnership there. The sort of similar strikers love to have a shot and get in the box, Fox in the box as both of them, and I can see that being a really good partnership.
Honestly, Gaz, it sounds like you remember back in the days of Champ Manager. It sounds like Huddersfield and Kev Nagel's going to go for a little bit of real life Championship Manager, just plucking the best players he can from League One clubs.
Do you know what? It's interesting because where Steve were talking then about saying we're going to go out and we're going to act like the big fish and we're going to try and get the best players in League One to come to Huddersfield because we've got a target on our backs and we want to live up to that. We want to go up next season. That is exactly what Bradford City fans wanted us to do when we dropped into League Two. And for whatever reason, we've not done it. Now, whether that is a financial thing, because obviously Town have got money behind them now with Kevin Nick. Well, they've always had more money, or they have over the last sort of 15 years had a lot more money than us. But, that's the disappointing thing from our point of view, because that's what we want to be doing in League Two. So, as for Sorensen, I don't remember too much about that game. I just remember it being absolutely freezing, Chris, and Longello scoring an absolute screamer in the last minute for Accrington. But vaguely, Sorensen, I just remember him getting forward quite a lot. I remember him spending most of his time in the attacking third, even when when Aki had the ball, he was running back because he was spending most of his time up top. So he's a very attacking wing back from what I remember. Obviously, knew he was at Stoke, and I was going to mention obviously Cartwright at Huddersfield. So that'd be my only thoughts on him. I'd see him probably as a good signing, and the fact that you'd be disappointed to lose him at Lincoln shows that he'd be a good signing for Huddersfield.
Is he a right winger, Chris?
Yeah,
Sorry.
he's a right wing back. Like
So-
he joined us originally as a bit of a centre mid / holding mid, and then he was put out to kind of right back in a back four. Did well there, but it's as Lou mentioned earlier, it's the engine that he's got in him. Like he can just run for days.
So
and that's what you want. That's what you want in your wing back positions, isn't it? That's what.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why Brad Halliday is so successful for us, because he's like Duracell Bunny. He just keeps running and running and running and running. He never stops. And when you're playing a 3-5-2, your wing backs need to be doing that, don't they?
But that makes total sense, because Spencer, who was probably the best player at the end of last season for us, I know there weren't many to choose from. I think I was high on that list. But he plays on the left, and this Sorensen probably would go well on the right. We don't really have a right wing back that's nailed down the spot, to be fair. So I'm excited. Listen, like it's about time we started saying, look, we're going to go after the best players. I'm a bit sick of us talking ourselves down, but to be fair, what they have done, Chris, is they put a target on the back now, because in every piece of communication that Duff or Nagel does, it's we're going for promotion. The target is promotion. We want to win the league. So to win the league, you need the best players in the league.
Yeah, he's not yours yet. Let's move on to Bradford City. Let's move on to Bradford City then, Gaz. And the big news for City, I guess, is less on the pitch and more what they're wearing on the pitch. The kit launch that came out last week, there was obviously a lot of build, and we've talked about this in the group chat over the last few days. There was a lot of build up to it, but just before we come to this, I'm fairly sure Lewis, Downes, Dave, like it's just a given that all clubs make big things out of new kits and kit launches, right? It's not just me that thinks this.
They do.
This time.
We did one on the front of a train station, Chris, wouldn't you? Like it was announced, and the whole kit was, I don't know what you call it, but like framed,
like projected.
Like projected. Yeah, it was mad.
There we go,
even us guys at Avenue were filming theirs on Wednesday ahead of Thursday's kit launch. So
are you modelling?
There we go, Gaz. I mean, look,
Absolutely.
they could have projected it onto the front of the Bradford interchange.
Oh, magnificent!
No, they couldn't.
It's shut, so nobody would have seen it.
That's
we were
why.
talking about the interchange last night, weren't we? How it's all a mess in the city centre. But no, when it comes to the kit launch,
That's how bad the England game was.
That's actually the kit launch has been a bit like, because we've had so many tweets a day, for like 4 or 5 tweets a day for like the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think people have just read more into it than that it was going to be more than just a kit launch, and that we were going to have a player, a new signing announced wearing it. I think it's also fallen into, people have sort of pinned the hopes on that a little bit, because we haven't made a signing for a couple of 2 or 3 weeks now, and the business seems to be picking up a little bit in League Two. I noticed today there's a couple of signings have happened in League Two. Other teams are moving a little bit, and I know that we did 4 signings quite early doors, but when the better players are starting to move, people start to get a bit angsty, and they're sort of pinning the hopes on. Like I said, there were so many tweets coming about this kit, like so many. I mean, I don't know. I know you said every club makes a thing of it. Do they all make so many tweets a day about it? I don't know. To me personally, I'm not bothered either way. I don't care what we wear. Could wear a bin bag. It's the players that wear it that matter. You need a decent players wearing it to get you out of the division. I don't really care what we wear, to be honest. The strip was built up. I think the disappointment thing as well about the strip, like I said, personally, not particularly fussed either way. Those that are going to be critical of it as a shirt are saying that it was built up as being a retro shirt, and it's not a retro shirt. So that's another sort of discussion to have. I think the fact that it's got 2 stripes down the centre is similar to a shirt that we wore in the 70s, but people are saying if you're going to build it as retro, it needs to be more retro than that. Personally, not particularly bothered. Shirt's a shirt. Wear the shirt. Get promotion. It's the players in it that count.
Can I just say on shirt reveals, I don't know if any of you remember, years ago, these like going back to the time we're in the Premier League, we played a pre-season friendly at Bury when they were still in the league, and basically it was Paddy Power on the front. I don't know if any of you remember that.
I remember it. Yeah, I do.
And we got fined 75 grand because of the sponsor. And our chairman at the time, Phil Hodgkinson, was begging the referee to cancel the game in the changing room before the match. As far as kit reveals go, I don't think you could ever get worse than the one that Town did, to be honest, that year.
That certainly was an unusual way of going about it. I mean, there it is, guys. You know, I really like that myself. And as an away kit, I think that's certainly going to be, for me, probably one of the nicer away kits that you'll see across the EFL this season myself.
Like I say, Chris, I'm probably not the best person to ask about a kit. I'm not particularly fashion.
Content.
Don't really care what we wear. A football shirt's a football shirt. I am someone who's going to go out and spend 50 quid on it, like some people do. But
55, Gaz, 55.
Sorry, you have actually got the price up there. But some people will be bothered, and some people will like it, and some people won't like it. That's what happens with kits at the end of the day. Like I said, the stripes down the middle, that is a hat back to, I think it's 75, kit of 1975. If it was going to be a bit more retro, maybe the collar would be slightly different. It looks quite similar to a kit that we had 2 or 3 years ago. Like I said, I think it's just some people were hoping that there'd be a signing with it. Personally, I was just annoyed that they were bigging it up so much because a kit, building up a kit announcement for weeks and weeks and weeks is not something I buy into. I want to hear about contract renewals, players leaving, new signings. That's what I cared about because I want to see us do well on the pitch next year, and the shirt ain't going to affect that.
Just out of interest, Gaz, what's the last time you bought a Bradford City shirt? Did it have David Weatherall on the back of it, or have you bought one since?
The last one I bought, I think, was probably about 11 years ago when we did the League Cup final.
So you are not the usual target audience for Bradford City aiming their sales at. Fair
well,
play.
Also, they don't do them in my size. I'm a big lad, so.
To be fair, well, I've just looked there, and they go up to 6XL, which I think would be fine. But the problem is,
do they go up to 6XL? I've missed that.
Well, hang on, they do, but it's a Macron kit, and I remember when Guiseley had Macron kits a couple of years ago. I mean, look, I'm not a slim chap, it's fair to say. But a 6XL in like Macron kits is like a medium in most other brands.
Oh my god, really?
Honestly, like I honestly, I could have like a 12XL in a Macron kit. And I barely think it'll get over me chest.
I don't mind the Bradford shirt. I just wish that it didn't have the coloured shoulders. I prefer.
I like that. I like that
myself. No, I like the stripes, but if just personally, I think you should just get rid of the colour on the shoulders.
Lewis, as our resident Avenue fan, any thoughts on the City kit?
Whatever. I like it. I like it. I think the thing is, I've said this, haven't I, in what we've chatted about before. There's a big cry out in the moment for retro shirts and this, that, and the other, which I get as a collector's item. But at the same point, it's hard to replicate a retro shirt because with all the sponsorship and everything that goes with it now. So obviously in the 75, kind of a design of it does replicate that, but we didn't have JCT 600 splashed across it and the UK Seat of Culture and all that kind of stuff and the sleeve badges. But I want clubs to come out and be a little bit more inventive and think outside the box and don't go down the retro route. Actually create a new one that people will eventually, that will like and become a bit of a statement piece. But I mean, I don't know. I'm sure I read this or heard it somewhere, but I think when there were a few years ago when West Brom went away from the typical having the main blue with white, and they went white with like blue pinstripes.
Pinstripes, yes.
And I think at the time it was one of the most fast-selling shirts because it was something a bit different from what we've normally had. So, listen, I agree with Gaz. I think we're of a certain age where it's all right. We might not be going buying every single one, but it's nice enough. I don't know what you want to say there.
Sorry, to be fair to City, they have gone down sort of the different route before. They've done they've done hoops rather than stripes.
Yeah,
they've gone. I think when Peter Taylor was manager, we had basically an all claret one, and then the year after we had nearly an all amber one with little pinstripe claret on it. So we have tried different things. So I can't criticise them for that. It's just like I said, just for me, like maybe it is an age thing, Lou, but I cared about who's wearing it, and I want to hear, like I said, I mentioned before, contract renewals and new signings and moving the players on that we don't want. That's the news that I cared about, and that's what I want to hear about. But there will be others that are about the kit.
I still have that childish love for a kit launch. I'm not going to lie. I really do.
I get it, but I also think, to Gaz's point, and I don't think get it, we live in a completely different world, don't we, now, where, sometimes kits would have just been shown and that'd have been it. But there's almost got to be a bit of a teaser campaign with that for social media and probably the younger ones around, just to get anticipation, because ultimately they're probably the target audience that are going to be buying these shirts. But I think I kind of see, I do see what Gaz is saying, because City have really built this up. And you thought something would have come alongside that, as well as the kit, maybe a new signing that clubs might try to do. But you know what, worse things have happened, haven't they? New kit, but you've signed some half decent players. You just need to go and sign a few more. Yeah.
One thing I will say, Gaz, is am I right in thinking that the home kit hasn't come out yet?
No, they've not done the home kit yet.
That's unusual in itself, that the away's out before the home.
Well, they'll probably make another 6-week newsworthy story out of that. So, toppers, just let's sort the squad out. I hope these I really, really, really hope these Charlie White rumours are true. I'd love to have him back at City. Probably need to get players out first, and maybe that's what we're working on. And I know there are players under contract that need to be moved on, so maybe that's why signings have gone quiet, and it's going to be a long process, even if it isn't a Charlie White, even for another type of player. Maybe there's the fact that we just need to get players out first. So let's just wait and see. But yeah, the home kit is still to come, Chris, and it is normally the home one first, isn't it, rather than the away.
I can't wait for that to be claret and amber bin bags. Horrendous.
We had a Tesco kit once. If you go back to 2015 under Chris Powell, it's really light blue and it looks like a Tesco bag. It was.
I remember that shirt.
It was genuinely horrendous, Dave. It was one of the least.
Was it a kit for life?
Shirt. No,
it was the one where it was sponsored by Recorder League Cider, which was it not that one? That one looked like a Tesco bag as well.
I don't think it was Record League, but it was just horrendous, Dave. And basically,
they had a red sponsor. It completed the look, didn't it? Because he had the blue, and then the red would usually be where it'd say.
I've got it at home. I never wear it.
I can't believe my joke went under the radar then. Dave, any news?
We heard it.
Any news with Town, Dave? On any front, this is not just about the kits, but hey, we can go off of the kits. Is the new kit out yet for Halifax Town?
No.
There we go.
Club news, and I know I've missed a few weeks recently, so I'm not sure how much we've covered, but we've made one signing, which was Tom Pugh, who's a midfielder. There was a tweet, I was just looking for it while we were talking then, and it must have been tweeted out by an unofficial account that was logging how many signings have been announced by each team. I think Barnet have announced 9. We've announced 1. Southend, who have a transfer embargo, have, of course, announced none. So we're sort of bottom of that particular signing announcement.
I was convinced then you were going to say, I was convinced for a second somehow you were going to say, Southend have announced 5, even though they've got a transfer embargo.
No.
But no.
No. And but I know our show's still in its infancy in a fashion. Like, we've only really been all together for one season, but this is totally typical of an Halifax Town pre-season. As soon as one season ends, it's like the club packs up for a couple of months and then just reopens again. It's like we don't know what's happening with season tickets. We don't know what price they're going to be. I mean,
really,
fans that bought one last year.
You've not even had season tickets yet, Dave.
No.
Not even had season. Wow.
No, and it's just sort of typical of our club, really, or the way it seems to be. There seems to be something every season that happens that means the club's never ready. Like, it just never seems to be ready. Like the season before last, it was like, oh, we had to sort Wembley out and the tickets and blah blah blah. Supporters have said, you've sorted Wembley out, why not do an offer for season tickets linked to people go to Wembley? I don't know. We seem to be a club where we what's the turn of phrase I'm looking for? They like to. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, we don't take card payments. Like, it's all cash on the gates, and it's like they give more reasons why they can't do something rather than more reasons why they can. They can't have card payments because they might not work, they might not do this, not do that, and that's just how it is. And it's been that way for a decade and a half nearly. Like, our shirts come out late. There's always a clamour to try and buy them. Then we run out, and then they have to be ordered, and then another batch don't come in till Christmas. This is just a typical pre-season for my club. We've always tended to make new signing announcements after the 1st of July. We like to play things by the book, which, contracts, I think, run until the end of June. So new contracts do come in on the 1st of July. So I think I was speaking to Brownie yesterday when we were all together about it. We once had his fingers burnt about 10 years ago, we'd signed 3 players from Hyde. We announced them and then they gave backward and didn't come. So I don't think that the clubs never really announced people before the ink's dry on a contract. So Tom Pugh's must be dry.
Must have been in concrete.
Yeah, absolutely set in stone. I mean, we have Adidas as our kit suppliers. So in terms of, we won't be high on their list of kits that need to be produced. We probably won't order that many. It's just where we're at. We have some nice kits. We've had some really nice Adidas kits. They've done them for nearly 10 years. I've never had too many problems with them. We've had a few fruity away shirts, but I don't buy away shirts, so it's not it's not an issue for me. A bit like Gaz, really. I'm just like, a shirt's a shirt. Like, we will play in royal blue, and as away shirt will be some combination of colours. Bradford City will run out in claret and amber come kick off in August. We know there's no real surprises. It's just what they're going to do with it. I mean, look behind Gaz, you've got stripes down and stripes across, but they're still claret and amber.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's not a lot of news regarding that. The picture's been having some stuff done to it, but it's the same every season. It'll be fine until winter when it really needs to, when it's made to work a little bit harder. As soon as it comes to that period, we'll be back. I'll be here again talking about the fact that rugby league and football is played on the same pitch and nobody seems like they want to sort it out. The council by this point will have offloaded the responsibility of running the Shea Stadium. So we're coming into a period where we really need our club to make their stance clear. And again, it's just like radio silence. We've just got to trust that they're doing stuff in the background. And speaking of doing stuff in the background, Mbappe, I think, has just scored for France. I think he's put the cross in.
Yeah, he's got the assist. I was about to say,
it's the assist.
In what is now becoming a weird coincidence whenever Dave talks about Halifax when we're doing a watch along or at least keeping on a game, there is a goal. Yeah, this is one for Leeds United fans. This is one for Leeds fans. It's a Woba own goal. To be fair, he had to get to it ahead of Griezmann. If he doesn't, Griezmann puts it in. But it's one of those that takes a few million off his value, which I'm sure will delight Brownie and Jay.
Dave, have Halifax released a couple of defenders announced that they're leaving Halifax? I saw something last week. I'm going to ask you about it.
Yeah, do you know what? I'd actually forgotten. Thanks for that, guys. Yeah, Jamie Stott and Tyler Golden have both not renewed their contracts at the club. So, yeah, they have now been released. Again, fans have got to sort of piece together the narrative and the story of it from snippets of the club do a catch-up with Chris Millington almost monthly. So we're due another catch-up very soon. But I think from his previous catch-up, he basically said, we have offered terms to every player. We can't wait around forever for them to decide whether that's acceptable for them or not. So I've got a feeling Tyler Golden and Jamie Stott have probably not agreed terms. And I think he's had to make the difficult decision to just be like, well, we can't. These are our terms. If they're not for you, then we have no choice. You're just going to have to, you'll have to go out. They will go elsewhere. They'll go to better teams than Halifax. They'll either go to another club in our league or they'll go higher up. Like they'll play for better teams next year, I'm sure. Tyler Golden's form, I don't want to say nosedived in the last month of the season, but by his standards, he had like a particularly bad end to the season. It was him that scored the own goal at Solihull that made it 3-0, where he was obviously just trying to clear it and he's ended up putting it in back of his own net. I think that just summed up that last couple of weeks. For him, Jamie Stott, as I've said on the show before, played every second of every game. So obviously he was like Mr. Reliable, somebody that Chris Millington obviously trusted. And I think that the thing with Jamie Stott is he's a left-footed, I think he's a left-sided centre-back, and they're something that a lot of teams clamour to get. So I wouldn't be surprised to see both either in the Football League or at a team like Oldham or somebody who's throwing money around in our league. It would not surprise me at all. The other player that left, a backup goalie that just never played, Tom Scott, he was at Avenue. Obviously, Lou will know about him.
Oh, excuse me.
Bless you, Dancer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's going to be one of those. Time will tell us to where both Golden and Stott end up going. anything amongst the rumour mill? I mean, I know we haven't talked about, there's no announcements into the incomings really besides Pew, but
No.
anything on the message boards or the rumour mill to get excited about?
I mean, I'm going to end up going on a bit of a rant here because I'm one of those people
Brace
that
yourselves.
I really hate them accounts. You know, where they'd be like, oh, Lewis Sales linked with, like, let's say Bradford, Huddersfield and Halifax. It's like, you actually don't know, do you? You're just making shit up. Do you know what I mean? Like, I absolutely despise accounts like that. Or they're quite clearly agents trying to feed out information. You know what I mean? Like, there's just not... We could get linked with 1 million players and, like, sign none of them. And every year... our fans interact and retweet, and it's like, what are you actually doing? Do you know what I mean? It'd be like, oh, we're linked with name James Norwood. Oh, Motherwell are keeping an eye on it. It's like, it's bollocks. Just why do people give them the time of day, honestly?
Excuse me,
I know it's the same for all clubs. It's the same for all clubs, but there's just our rumours never come off. Like, we could be rumoured to be signing X, Y, and Z, and we'll sign a load of players that we don't really know a lot about. And I don't know why people give them the engagement. I really don't. Like,
to be fair, there's so many of those accounts as well, and they're all called like at Transfer News and at NL Transfers, and yeah, you're right. A hell of a lot of them do turn out to be absolute nonsense.
And then we have like a group of fans where we have signings. Like, other clubs will sign a player and they're like, oh, it's another player we've missed out on. So I go on our club's forum now and I'll post a link to teams like Yeovil signed. That was probably the closest one, actually. I'm using a bad example where they signed the lad from Bradford, Finn Cousin.
Yeah,
and I put underneath it, another one the club's missed out on. And I just do it with every transfer. It could be somebody like...
It could be Kylian Mbappe to Real Madrid.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's another one. Yeah, no, but it's realistic. It'd be like, let's stick with Yeovil. It'd be like Yeovil signed somebody from Torquay. I'd just put, another one the club's missed out on, because we have a crop of fans that are just like that. They're like, who do you think we're actually going to sign? Do you know what I mean? It's like, there's Chris Clark at Altrincham at the minute, and please, somebody take him off their hands, please. Because I can't. I've obviously targeted Altrincham on here before. They're absolutely insufferable. I cannot stand them online.
Oh, here we go.
Honestly,
I've got friends at Altrincham that I want to be able to go and see again, Dave. So just rein it back a bit, eh?
Dave, are you so you're really positive going into next season? And yeah,
it's just a standard. It's just a standard pre-season for us. I mean, to give you an unfunny answer, you've got to trust Chris Millington. He's been involved for 6 seasons. We've always finished in the top 10. No matter what we say, we're not signing. I mean, him and Pete Wild come in off the back of Jamie. I can't get his name. Jamie Fullerton essentially resigned 2 weeks before pre-season started, and they both came in. And ever since, we've finished in the top 10. We've got to trust that Chris Millington and obviously Pete Wild before him knew what they were doing. I mean, some more level-headed supporters have sort of said the same. You've got to, no matter what we think of how the clubs run off the field, and it literally, at times, it can come across as if it's like Sunday League. Honestly, a Sunday League team could be run better off the field, it seems, in terms of just everything that they do. But our club's run by 2 full-time staff, one of which is the club secretary. Like, I don't know what people want. Well, I do. They just want the owner to just throw a load of money in. I don't know, have a team of like 10 people off the field that just deal with all of that kind of stuff. But it's like, if we have no news to report or anything substantial, just don't report anything. Like, I think the club tweeted like, well done England the other day, and about 3 people jumped on it. Why don't you announce some signings? It's like, if we haven't got any signings to announce, we can't announce them. But it is frustrating. Just bringing it round full circle before I finish. It is frustrating when you see things like the little tables of how many announcements have been signed, and some clubs have announced like 7, 8, 9 signings. We've only announced 1. But come kickoff, we will kick off in our new kits. We will have new signings, and the season will get underway.
Fantastic.
Con Clark's rumoured to be going to Peterborough, isn't it?
I was about to say,
that's the big thing,
which is a very Peterborough type signing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, because Peterborough, they've got a really good track record over the last few years of picking players up from National League and the non-league football reaches, and to be fair, making it work for them as well as a club. Final comment from Ian on before we kind of move on to the Euros. I mean, the team splashing the cash for the National League, it's fair to say they are. I mean, look, over the years, there has always been a couple. Obviously, in more recent years, we had Wrexham and Stockport. Last year, it was Chesterfield and Oldham. York as well, despite where they were in the table. They had the third, to the best of my knowledge. I think they were something like the third highest wage budget in the National League last season.
It probably
There are clubs there with money, and it'll be the same again because York have still got the same Canadian ownership. So I expect they'll spend big this year. Oldham will go big again because Mickey Mellon desperately needs it to work for him before he ends up losing his job there. There are clubs
Forest
there
Green
with money. Yeah, Forest Green.
Yeah, Forest Green are just throwing it around again, aren't they? But this is it, you see, they're out of the Football League and there's no financial fair play, so they can do what they want.
He does seem to have reined it in a little bit, does Dale Vince, because of course he's putting his money into the stadium as well as on the pitch.
And politics.
Yes, and politics, allegedly. Yeah, I mean, look, we've kind of, you're looking at Oldham, who's probably the biggest spenders. I'd say York will be up there. Rochdale are spending some, but certainly not by any way the money that other clubs are. They've just got themselves now on a sound financial footing with new ownership. There's still some big hitters in that league. The National League next season is going to be a really tough league.
I'm really pleased that Rochdale are sorted out, to be honest. I know you work for them, Chris, but I have friends that support Rochdale. Like the guy that I know has supported them for like 70 odd years. Like just proper true supporter, goes week in, week out to home games. And I'm pleased that they've got sorted out financially now, because we can't be having clubs like Rochdale going to wall, and you know, it's just the proper Football League clubs.
Yeah, it should be nice if we can get ourselves back there hopefully in the next couple of years or so. Let's move on then. I think there's no other business at club level, is there, gents? Is there anything we've missed? I don't think there is at this stage.
Lou's got a bit of stuff. Lou's got a bit of non-league stuff, haven't you, Lou?
Oh, just a bit. Yeah, just a bit. So just to run through a couple of actual signings that people have announced other than Halifax Town. Is Guiseley have signed Joe Cracknell, goalkeeper. Some listeners may be familiar with him, Gaz maybe as well from the younger days at City, but obviously being at Scarborough, Harrogate. So yeah, he's now rocked up at Guiseley with Bowden Bosch and the rest of the team there. So again, building quite a solid National League North team. Other signings, Kurt Harris has just been announced as Livicich's centre-back again for next season. I know Rimington and managers quite saying he thinks he's the best centre-back in the league. So that's another big coup for Livicich to keep hold of Harris. And then also in the NPL East League is Brighouse have made a couple of signings. Carl Chenery, who's been around various clubs as well in West Yorkshire.
Yeah, Guiseley, Silsden, Albion.
Yeah.
Name but three.
Yeah, so he's now going to be starting the season at Brighouse. And also quite an impressive one, which might go under the radar a bit, is Danny Edwards, who was at Knaresborough last season. Actually watched Danny Edwards a little bit, actually from an Avenue perspective. And yeah, he scored quite a few goals for Knaresborough last season. So that could be quite an interesting one as they're kind of rebuilding under new manager Grant Black. I mean, also Albion Sports have announced quite a few signings. So Jordan Porter's left Livicich to go to Albion Sports to replace Trenery. Jake Hemingway's left Frickley to go to Albion Sports. And also another player who's gone in is Tyreek Fishley as well, who was at...
He was a Northern East Prem title winner, wasn't he, with North Ferriby the year before last?
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
Yeah, he'd been at Ferriby, been at Yorkshire Amateurs, Silsden and Wakefield last season, so he's jumped back up a league to go to Albion Sports. So yeah, some quite shoot signings there. Obviously, we mentioned a few weeks ago that Riz Mamed's now no longer manager there, even though he's still involved in the behind the scenes stuff. And Neil Simpson and Craig Oggy is there as well, so they're kind of running the ship now at Albion Sports. So that's an interesting one. From an Avenue perspective, no new signings from last time that we've mentioned. There's a couple of things happening. So there's almost a bit of a ground maintenance volunteering evening happening tomorrow and Tuesday at 6 p.m. And then Thursday is a kit launch and meeting new players, kind of having a get-together ahead of a new season to get a little bit of excitement. But I think kind of echoing a little bit of what you guys have said previously, and you get this probably quite a lot in non-league as well, even though it's not the same amount of numbers, but the noise is probably just as loud, is when you want to make a signing or you've got signings potentially in the bag and on all this, that fans are always disappointed when they see one of their targets or people who they think they should have gone for end up going to somebody else. And listen, it happens all the time. Being involved in some of this kind of stuff at Avenue, which have been recently, definitely the case during off season. But it is not fantasy football. It's not as easy as getting your number one targets every time. And there is a lot more that goes on behind the scenes when kind of this stuff happens. And I think it's hard because obviously when you're a supporter, and rightly so, sometimes you don't want to know the ins and outs because it's kind of not, it's not obviously sometimes in that public domain, which it shouldn't be. But there's different circumstances that can lead to players moving to different clubs and maybe not choosing your club over another. It could be personal, it could be financial, it could be a situation where they might have been recovering from an injury, or they just want more game time. They see themselves in a different position at a different club. There's so much that goes on. And yes, it's difficult when you see some players move to different clubs and you're a bit like, oh, maybe we should have gone for them. But I could quite confidently say a lot of these clubs are looking at the same kind of players. And it's a matter of just preference of where that player feels that they can have a better, not even necessarily better season, but a better start to the season. So they might potentially move on kind of Christmas time, January time to another club, or see out the full season and then kind of look again this time next year. But I think it's quite a key thing to kind of note that at this time it might be a bit quiet because some players have either decided to stay where they are. From Dave's point of view at Town, I 100% get why Halifax are doing that, because you don't want to be burnt like that.
No.
But also clubs are trying their best to Gaz's point earlier and yourselves, is that there's got to be some excitement for fans to get behind of selling tickets, selling shirts and launching all this kind of stuff. And it's really on the line of how far do you go to promote some stuff to actually keeping stuff back to closer to the time to maybe have another push at something else. So there's so many politics in it. There's a massive amount of politics behind the scenes that goes on at clubs like this. But I think clubs will only announce it when they're absolutely pretty much 99.9% sure those players will agree to stay at that club, because at the end of the day, the clubs should be in power. You know, it's hard because obviously it's a bit of a game of chess where players will probably negotiate and work out better terms with different clubs and get the best deal because for a human being, like we were doing our jobs. But at the same point, the clubs have got to be resolute and stand up for themselves, because it is that old saying where the club is bigger than one player, and you sometimes, maybe to Dave's point, you know, depending what the situation is, you've just got to move on and you've got to build and get a few more players in. And if a deal isn't right for a player, then Halifax is bigger than a James Dott, for instance, even though he's been immense and done a really good job.
I think the thing that upsets supporters, and I do fall into this group, is Halifax. As much as I've just sort of criticised our club for a little bit of lack of engagement, when they speak, then it's not difficult to decipher what they're saying. They're saying, we know where we are, and you know, we develop players that are either just coming out of academies, or they've not quite had a good crack at the Football League, or they've been injured. And once they've had that run again and they get themselves up and running, we'll never stand in the way of players progressing their careers. So what it is, a lot of supporters come from the angle like, we've given them a chance, where's the loyalty? And it's like, well, obviously there's no loyalty in football and stuff like that. This whole kit reveal and this clamour to always have news is definitely linked to social media. I mean, how long do we call it a new technology? You know, we've had Facebook and stuff for 15 years, but you know, they wouldn't have had this clamour before. Like, it keeps everybody in touch with one another, whereas before you'd find out who a new signing is, it'd be on the back of the newspaper. Yeah. You know, the Halifax Courier is weekly now. I know the TNA is still daily. The Huddersfield Examiner's cutting back constantly.
It doesn't exist, Dave. It does not exist.
You see what I mean?
The Examiner ceased to exist. It's been amalgamated into Yorkshire Live. The title exists, but is
it just online now?
Well, so basically, the title is amalgamated into Yorkshire Live. They still call it the Examiner in a very loose term. But actually, when you get the printed paper in your shop, it's full of adverts. B, it's created by journalists in Liverpool and Manchester. There's no Huddersfield journalists left at all in the entire portion of Kirklees, and it's printed in Oldham.
Yeah.
But I think you're right though, Dave. I think there is an element of it's hard in it because you're fans and you want to know your stuff before other people do, and you want your club to be the best. And you're right. But I think sometimes, like you say, to probably not say anything can actually having its benefits. It's how long do you stay silent for, to your point. And I get that. I think there's got to be something, whether it's a fortnightly or a monthly update at some point, just to keep people in the loop. And you might not say anything at all. You know, it might be just a load of words that really don't mean anything tangible. But like you said, you can probably read as much into what's kind of happening. And I think, once pre-season's only what, 3 weeks, 2-3 weeks away. It's not far away.
Yeah,
Yeah. 2 weeks away.
Well,
I think City are back a week on Monday.
Yeah, we're
fortnight today.
Yeah, Town are back in training end of this week, I believe. Obviously, we had Andrew Payton on last week, which was really glad to have him on, as we said last week. And Emily are playing Town in a friendly on the 29th of June. So get yourself down to the Fantastic Media Stadium. I think some of us are going if we've got enough energy, which will be good. So I'm looking forward to seeing Town and Emily. So yeah, get yourselves down there.
Yeah, as long as we don't get ourselves too hungover, then hopefully a few of us will make it for that one. So
yeah, hopefully.
We'll move on then and turn our attentions to England and the Euros in general. And actually, let's start with the Euros in general. Let's not depress ourselves too quickly. The Euros, it's been bloody brilliant, hasn't it? It's just been great having an international tournament back on the screens multiple times a day. Lou?
Yeah, some of the games have been thoroughly enjoyable. We've been commenting quite a lot, haven't we, over the past, since Friday, of kind of some of them games. Now we've seen it's gone. I've noticed quite a few defensive errors have been capitalised on. We've seen that already today. We've seen it yesterday. Obviously Austria have just scored an own goal, for France now. So it seems to be a pattern where I think the international teams are really having a fine balance of how far to go with pushing it forward, to the point where Germany kind of set the scene, obviously, on Friday. And this isn't tongue in cheek, but the Scotland is an opposition. It's hard to kind of compare them other teams so far because they have been probably the worst team we've seen so far. But what I will say is that the first game is crucial, and I know we'll probably talk about England, and I've had but some reflection on what happened last night. But I think it's crucial that some teams just get over the line. But we've already seen a few shocks already, Belgium today.
Today alone, when you look at the Ukraine and Belgium.
Yeah. I mean, I thought the Romania-Ukraine game was the best game of the tournament so far, if I'm honest. It was end-to-end, and it was just fantastic, to be honest. Both teams having a right good go.
There's been some real good highlights so far. And I think it's so hard because the first game you just get a buzz for it, don't you? You're kind of a kid in a sweet shop, aren't you, on Christmas Eve, ready just to pick everything out of the tub. So I think the first game is different. When it gets to the third game, it starts, you're either through when you're resting players, or you're really up against it. You need to get something from that game to go through. The next round of games, I think the second one for me is where it starts to get really critical. Because, like I say, if you've lost or drawn the first game, the pressure's on for the second game. And then obviously the knockouts quickly follow. So, yeah, it's been entertaining. It's been enjoyable. Do I think it's some of the best football we've seen across various tournaments in recent years? I'll be honest, I don't think it is. But what I will say is it's been relatively entertaining from a neutral perspective.
I'm going to be more positive than that and say that I don't think there's been a bad game yet.
No, I don't. I agree with you, Chris, wholeheartedly. Even I know we'll talk about England, but even our game was, semi-entertaining at times. Yeah, I think it's been a good tournament so far. I agree with Lou, though, that Scotland have been the worst team. I'm interested to see how good Georgia are, because apparently you would think they are probably the worst team in the tournament. I was surprised how good Romania were, to be honest.
I think rankings-wise, Georgia are the lowest. I know Albania were the second lowest. I can't remember who it was. It's the actual lowest. It wouldn't surprise me.
Can somebody explain that to me today about when Clive Tilsley said it was the biggest shock in Euro Championships history, Slovakia beating Belgium? I didn't really get the.
I wonder if Slovakia are bottom of the.
He's talking about the rankings between the two teams.
Yeah.
So Belgium is second best team in Europe, and
Right.
Slovakia in the 40s. I can't remember the exact number. So I think in terms of the actual distance in the official world rankings, that's where it's being classed as. But listen, I mean, they deserved it. They deserved to get something out of that game, whether it was 3 points or a point. I know Belgium had a couple of goals cancelled out for VAR, but in the end, Slovakia did exactly what they needed to do. And you need a bit of luck, don't you, in those tournaments? As a team like that, you need a bit of luck to get over the line, because probably 7 or 8 times out of 10, Belgium are going to win that game. But what happens now is that makes it quite interesting now, I think, for that second game. Like I said earlier, that second game in these group stages are critical to say you either get the third match day into a bit of a more relaxed situation, or you throw in all your eggs in one basket for it.
Yeah, that group is completely upside down from where we predicted it at the start. But you got to add, it's only after the first game. Go on, Downes.
I just think the refs have been all right, actually, as well. Henry Winter today has kicked off massively on Twitter about the Belgium second goal not being given. He handballs it.
I think it's harsh. I'll be honest. I know it strikes an arm, but
they've not got shockers wrong. Like in World Cup,
no.
What was it, like 8 years ago, when they were getting, like, every game there was a bad decision. Like, I don't think they've been that bad to be. In fact, the worst referee, I think, has been the English lad.
Here's something to look forward to.
I was just going to say that, Downsy. Sorry, Chris. I was just going to say that because that was a mistake, what they did again in the Spain game. That was a big error, and unfortunately, that isn't going to go in favour of a knockout sort of final, is it at all?
If ever there was a way of, what we've been saying all season about the Premier League, and it's not just VAR, it's the officials. If ever there was a way to highlight that, make it that it would be the English officials that dropped the biggest ball so far in terms of VAR decisions over the course of the tournament, which is typical. But positives from VAR especially. Something we should be able to look forward to. How good are semi-automated offsides? How smooth, how quick are they?
They're quicker than normal, aren't they? They're quicker, but...
What do you mean they're quicker than normal? They're bloody lightning compared to 6 minutes. They are. First stadium or whatever.
I get it. The Belgium-Slovakia one, I thought, took quite a long time considering, but I know that's not... It's a little bit of different. It's, kind of the perception of whether that's a handball. It's quicker. It's so hard because I think, again, from being a non-league perspective and an EFL perspective, you used to just scoring a goal and celebrating and not expecting to wait another 2-3 minutes. I still think it does kill that momentum after it. You're still not sure whether to celebrate, but listen, it's better than a 4-minute review, and if you're going to get it over 30 seconds. But it's here to stay, regardless of whether we like it or not, unfortunately.
Lukaku was fuming. It was funny.
He was bloody unfortunate. I'm gonna take a punt that some people here aren't a massive Lukaku fan, but for me, I mean, he's Belgium's all-time leading goal scorer, to be honest. And I think he was bloody unlucky today. I thought he put a bit fair shift in, and was unfortunate to end up seeing 2 goals ruled out today against Slovakia. But he does get some stick. Speaking of getting stick, let's then turn our attention to last night and to England, and we got the job done, is my positive spin. Gaz?
Yeah, I thought we started quite well. I thought that the first... I say we started quite well. It was quite interesting because obviously it was what we expected, and Serbia sat really deep and we had all the ball, and you kind of knew that was most people thought that's the way it was going to be, and it looked as though we'd prepared for that to be the way the game was going to play out. And then we scored, and suddenly Serbia started to play, and it was as though we hadn't prepared for Serbia playing.
Second half especially.
And I thought that it was pretty... Well, I know they had a lot of the ball, and it wasn't a great game after that. I know we've said most of the games have been good games. I thought that was arguably one of, if not the worst game that there's been so far. But you say that they had all of the ball, and we weren't great, especially in the second half. Pickford's only had 1 save to make, and their keepers only had 1 save. Their keepers also made a save at the other end from Kane. So even though they had more of the ball and we didn't dominate as much as we probably thought we would do, that probably came from us getting the goal quite early, the game changing to a different game to what we thought it would be. And and then as sort of we still didn't concede. We didn't concede that many chances, so we need to improve, no doubt about it. Bellingham was the highlight of the game. I don't know why we took him off and left certain other players on the pitch. It's an enigma for me that we just can't seem to get the best out of Foden in an England shirt, and that's really disappointing. At some point, someone's going to have to crack that enigma.
Yeah, I mean, Foden, I think we all said it last night, didn't we, that Foden was not at it. And I think at times during the course of last night, we were also basically saying to each other, Lou, like, can't really remember the last time we ever saw, we saw Phil Foden have a good game in an England shirt.
It's so hard because he's such a quality player. He's proved it this year. He's just ripped the Premier League to pieces, and we know what he's capable of doing. I think Gaz is right. It's just a bit of an enigma that we just can't seem to get the best out of him. What I will say is, and this sounds bizarre because I know people are going to disagree with me, even just within our group, it's hard to drop him because you know what he's capable of doing. But what we've got to try and do is get the best out of him in the right position. And I felt in the first 15, 20 minutes when he started to play a little bit more centrally, I was a bit encouraged. I was thinking, you know what? Fair play. Jude kind of just running the show in midfield. I thought Declan Rice were holding it together. Foden were coming inside. And even though it was leaving a bit of a gap on that left-hand side, that's where you want Foden to be. And it's listen, if we had an extra spot, as crazy as it sounds, you'd have had a Gordon or an Eze or somebody on that left wing to compensate for that because that'd have been a perfect balance. But we're almost like one player short of where we need to be to get the balance right. But what I will say is I think he will come good. I think he's going to have a couple of really good games in his tournament. I hope we do persevere with him. I'll argue as well. I think in the group stages, listen, we weren't at our best and we've got the win. And I think you're right, Chris, we've got the job done. My reflections on it are Alexander-Arnold as well. He's got those moments of brilliance, but he's still adapting to that midfield role. It's never perfect. It's never going to be perfect when somebody's thrown into a position where they're relatively unfamiliar. And sometimes you might have to compensate a bit of a lost possession or a little bit of naivety because he's new. You can't just walk into a role like that and expect to be perfect.
No.
But what I will say is it gives you that option from a passing range that I don't think we've got across the pitch. If I was Southgate, I would stick with the same team for the next game. But I think there's going to be a few players maybe just having a point to prove to stay in the squad maybe for the third game. And you know what? If we win against Denmark, it might be a good opportunity for the likes of Gordon and Eze potentially to have a bit more of a say in that.
Can I just say, the couple of points based on what you said? I totally agree on Trent. The thing is, I don't think Liverpool have found his best position yet, to be 100% honest. Yeah. And that's Jurgen Klopp, who's arguably one of, if not, the best manager in the world. And he obviously played all that time at right back, and he's been playing inverted right back. And it's just finding out where you can get the best of him. The other thing on Foden is, I would like to. We've talked about this a lot on previous pods and in the group chat. I think that him and Bellingham are our two best players. I would love to see them both to somehow get a formation where we can play 2 10s, a bit like what Germany did with Wirtz and Musiala. Get them both in that number 10 position. I think the reason we might not do it is because we don't really have a left wing back who can bomb up and down that left-hand side. And that probably prevents us from playing with 2 10s. But ideally, that's what we would do to get the best for me, to get the best out of Foden and Bellingham together. I
think you're right. I think the one you sacrifice is probably Alexander-Arnold and put a Gordon or an Eze or somebody like that ilk on that left-hand side. Don't you, to probably give you a bit of balance on that left hand side. It's hard, isn't it? It's difficult. But listen, for me, I would have started Palmer instead of Saka. I thought Saka, actually watching the game back in the highlights, was better than I thought on the evening. I thought defensively he wasn't great, but I think actually I probably didn't give him enough credit as what I probably should have done on the night. But from the team I wanted to see, Southgate pretty much picked everyone, so I can't criticise him for that. What I will again have a little bit of a moan about is I still think he was 5 to 10 minutes a little bit late of just putting the subs on. I think Gallagher did make a little bit of a difference. He could have come a little bit earlier just to shore things up a little bit. And maybe the likes of Palmer could have come on, or Eze or Gordon, just to stretch the game out a bit, or even a Watkins or a Tony just to bring Kane off, because Kane did win a lot of fouls in that second half. He dropped a lot deeper, but he was very isolated. We were almost playing like a 9-1 formation at times, and from our perspective, and it sounds a bit selfish and a bit egotistical from a England perspective, that we should be not in that position against Serbia.
Just again, two points on that. I think you're right. Watkins, Tony, especially when you're sitting so deep, you need that pace up front to run the channels, keep the ball up the other end of the pitch a little bit. I think we talked about it last night, didn't we? We also talked last night, and I was thinking about it on the way home a little bit, about how the success that Southgate had as England manager was often when we had Rice and Phillips sitting in midfield. That would, again, probably allow you to play Foden and Bellingham together. Obviously, you'd still need to sort that left wing-back position out. But could you play a Rice and a Wharton? Could Wharton do what Phillips did? I think he probably could. I think I've been really impressed with Wharton so far. Maybe going forward, we could have a Rice and a Wharton sitting, and then a Foden and a Bellingham as 2 10s. I think that would work if we could sort that left wing-back position out.
Dave, I mean, I don't know if you can remember the England game that well.
I do remember it very well. Ian in the YouTube comments has brought up the point that I was going to bring up, that I was listening to the post-match after Slovakia-Belgium. They were doing, obviously, a reflection on England, and I think it was Ian Wright that said it. It was like, Foden's had an off day, but he's, you know what I mean? It's like, you can't drop him. You can't, you know what I mean? It happens. He's like, he's had a bad game. I know it's rare for a man of, you know, it's rare for a player of that caliber to have those kind of off days, but it's like, leave him on. He's got to play next game. But yeah, I mean, I can't remember who I said it to last night, as inebriated as I were, but I said, whatever you think of tonight's game, it's been won by a world-class player doing something world-class, and that's been the difference. And maybe in other tournaments at other times, we'd have drawn that game and we'd have lost that game.
Yeah.
You know, we were resolute. I mean, we saw sort of, I know we won't get away with it as much against the better sides, but I think we saw 2 sides to England yesterday. We saw what we all know we've got, a world-class attack. It got us 1-0, but we were quite gritty and quite organised in keeping Serbia out at times.
Yeah, I mean,
so I think we've seen 2 very different styles that have worked for England last night. Like I say, I don't think that being resolute defensively will work against the likes of your Frances and your Germanys, but you can only beat what's in front of you, and we did that. I mean, by 1 goal, and we've obviously, you guys have dissected it a little bit more, but we've still got job done.
I mean, as Ian says, Dave, you know, he was impressed with Mark Gay last night. I think a lot of people actually came out of that game last night very impressed with Mark Gay. And you looked at the amount of crosses that flashed across the box or that went into the box and were dealt with by England. As you say, that resolute side came to the fore. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, obviously, we've covered Trent in midfield. It's a role he's still learning, and yeah, I'm going to be honest, I can't remember too many of the intricate little details of the game, but I can remember that he had a very good game, the centre-back.
Downes, looking ahead?
Well, just to give my reflections, Chris, on the game. It basically, some thoughts of mine. I thought Foden obviously had a bad day, like we've said. He's not going to have many 2 bad days. My only problem with playing Foden on the left seemingly was that him and Bellingham sort of got in each other's way because they want to do the same things. Now, the caveat to that is that I don't think Foden would have won the header where Bellingham can. So Bellingham can, for me, do a little bit more than what Foden can in terms of that bursting into the box, that finish. I think Foden's a more technical player that, you know, loves to sort of come inside, drop the shoulder, have a go, sort of, and he didn't really get a chance to, you know, he couldn't get on the ball to do that because Serbia played a very, I thought, very solid sort of formation, and the way that they played. I didn't think Serbia was spectacular, but, you know, what they did was they frustrated us, particularly in midfield. I don't agree with Gareth and his comments afterwards when he said he needed to put Gallagher on because we were being overrun and stretched. I thought,
Southgate, not Walker, yeah?
Southgate, yeah.
I thought he meant me at first as well. Yeah, I
thought he meant our Bellingham at first.
No, you don't need to be stretched, Gaz. I thought, you know, in terms of Southgate, I didn't agree with that comment, but just simply because we shouldn't be getting outworked by a Serbia team. That shouldn't be happening with the players that we've got. So to stick Gallagher on, you know, I thought Gallagher did all right, don't get me wrong, but
I think he improved things.
It shouldn't, yeah, he did, but it shouldn't be your first go-to substitution. Kane in the second half, I thought, to be honest, Kane had a poor game. But again, he couldn't really get into the game because the Serbian centre-backs were right up against him. And even when he dropped deep, the reason he dropped deep in the second half is because we were sat back so much. Germany, you look at, and I know, we've joked with Lou about Scotland and whatever, and Serbia are a much better side, but Germany went and killed Scotland off, literally killed it, wrapped it in a sandwich and killed it again. Other teams have done that. I'm not sure what the French score is now, but Spain did that with Croatia, and we didn't do that. And that was the most frustrating thing. You look at other sides, Chris, like Italy, Spain, and Germany particularly, and they've had a real fluidity to them. And I don't think we had that. Last night, to me, was a battle, and we got through it. But to win this tournament, we're going to have to be a hell of a lot more fluid, if I'm honest. So looking ahead, I think, Denmark again. To be honest, lads, you look at the group, really, and they're all very sort of similar sides, aren't they, really? Denmark, Slovenia, and Serbia. They're all going to sort of sit back. Maybe Denmark not as much, but, they're not spectacular teams. And I think it would have been nice if we'd have had a big sort of head in there to challenge us a little bit, to get us ready for the next round. Like Lou says, if you win your first game, it really, you've got to get 1 point to even secure third place.
Yeah.
So if you win your first game, you've sort of, sort of like 33% chance of going through. So yeah, I think it was all right. I think looking ahead, we should beat Denmark. If I'm honest, from obviously we watched them as well. I didn't think they were great, and Slovenia. I think we've played them enough in qualifying to sort of know what they're about as well. But the best side so far for me have been Germany, by far, I think, and Spain. And it would worry me coming up against both them sides. I know that people in the chat don't necessarily agree with that, but that's just my view, really. I don't think there's been a standout team that you can say, wow, blown me away, apart from maybe them two.
I think Spain are just as frightened of us as we're just as frightened of England, of Spain. Spain will be just as worried about us as we're worried about them.
Well,
Germany, I think, a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, like the Italians, to me, they worked great the other night, if I'm honest, against Albania. I know the goal after 23 seconds sort of changed it, but they weren't amazing, were they? I mean, what do you lads think? Would you say that any side has sort of... So we've watched most of the teams now in the competition, apart from Portugal's group. Is there any team that you would seriously worry about us going up against at the moment?
You know what? Right now, for me, I mean, France, don't get me wrong, as good as this French side is,
and they're not playing well. I've not got it on.
Austria are doing a really, really good job, and Austria have had chances to be level in this game. I mean, what was it you were saying, Gaz? Never write off the Germans. They've, as you say, I think it's obvious they've put in the best performance so far of any team. Closely followed for me by the Spaniards. I thought they were really, really good going forward against Croatia, but not necessarily enough to really worry me. They're not, no performance from an opposition side has really worried me in terms of thinking, they would batter us. Yes, they would give us a damn tough game, and it would be a really difficult game, but not made me think, it's foregone conclusion if we play so-and-so, they're going to win 5-0.
They were brave, though, Chris. That's my other point. They were brave. They went and killed teams off. I don't think we were brave. Hang
on. I
thought we just scored and then we just sat back and we just thought, well, if we get through 1-0, then that's all fine and dandy. And I hate that mentality.
I don't think that was the case, though. I mean, games are hinge on moments, and it's as much as Serbia were in the second half. We come back to I think it was the point that Gaz made earlier. Pickford only had to make one save. On another day, the Serbian keeper. On another day, the Serbian keeper doesn't necessarily make that brilliant save to deny Kane. And if we sit here at 2-0, everyone's going, well, that was really comfortable. It's one of those, isn't it? You can only play what's in front of you.
We didn't have another chance by that.
Look at the game. Serbia, I wouldn't... You're acting like Serbia, Mozambique or Latvia or Lithuania. Hang on. Serbia are a world-class player, a world-class individual away from being a really good side.
I'm not saying they're like a Mozambique. Gambia.
You're acting like they had no right to get themselves back into the game.
No,
And
I
they
didn't.
did. They had every right. They had
I never
every right to get themselves, and they imposed themselves. It's not just a case of England sitting back and dropping deeper and deeper. It's them pushing higher and higher and further downfield. Like, it's not all England dropping back and defending. It's because
Why didn't we counter it, Chris? Why didn't we?
You react to what Serbia are doing, and Serbia, trailing in a game, have to attack and go for it.
Yeah, but
it's not as easy as saying, "Oh, we'll change things and put an attacker on." You can only do with your side to try and balance out the other side. Like, at the end of the day, as we've said, it was a resolute defensive performance that got the job done. And honestly, I couldn't give a flying monkey if we win all 3 games 1-0 and the goal goes in off an opponent's arse. Like,
no, neither could I. But I just want us to be brave, and Gareth's not brave for me.
I don't get, apart from the, I will, because I said yesterday, I agree about the substitutions and the timings of them. They could have been made earlier. I don't really get what was not brave about yesterday's performance.
Does anybody else think that we were brave yesterday?
Yeah. The header from Bellingham that won the game. Because he wanted it more and the header were there.
Steve, what is brave?
Well, like the Germans, right, and the Spanish.
What did they do that was brave?
Well, they scored the first goal, and they were playing.
So did we.
Germany, but the Spanish, they were playing a really, really good Croatia team, who I thought did decent, actually, to be honest, and they should have, scored some chances themselves. But Spain didn't just sit back and think, right, we scored 1 goal, we're just gonna be happy with 1 now. They went and they scored 2, 3, and 4.
Did you watch the following 32 minutes of the first half after the Bellingham goal?
Yeah, it wasn't the best. Right, Chris, I don't know if you've sat under a rock for like 24 hours, but I've listened to TalkSport, I've watched like analysis of the game like on social media, and most people agree with the fact that the first 30 minutes was decent, 35 minutes. The last 10 minutes of the half was not so good, and then the second half was a very turgid display. I don't like. I know that you're a Southgate super fan, but in what sense did you think that it was a magnificent second half performance? Yeah, it was defensively. Well,
never said that. I just said like you're acting like I wouldn't care if
I'm not.
As I say, you like you're not factoring in Serbia in this. Like, you're not factoring in their performance. You just say, well, we played badly.
They did all right. They did all right. I'm not like, but I didn't think there was anything special. If they created chance after chance after chance, then I get why we have to be like, oh, we've got to be consolidated here. We've got to think about getting it over the line. But Pickford had 1 save to make. 1. Weren't like it were like wave after wave after attack, wasn't it? Am I on my own here, Luke?
Serbia had a hell of a lot of the possession. How many crosses?
They did nothing with it.
Yes, well.
How many
crosses? How many crosses and that did they flash into the box? Like, you could see their tactics was getting the ball into the box.
Yeah,
for those of you
defensively did well.
For those of you that aren't in our group chat, this is a typical discussion between Christopher Bell and Stephen Downes, and we have these on a regular basis.
No, actually, guys, I'm not normally involved in this discussion, but like, are you agreeing? Do you agree, guys?
I just don't think. Like, I think you're just not reflecting actually how good Serbia are as well. That's all.
Serbia would beat Scotland and they'd give Croatia a good game.
Yeah, I think Serbia and Croatia are on par. I really do.
I mean, we should have done more, Steve. We should have been able to put them away, but we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't.
It was a good piece of, what I mean? The goal that was scored was a good cross from Saka. Bellingham put his head where it could hurt. That's brave, and he's put it in the back of the net. It's a real old school centre-forward goal that you don't see very often anymore. And Serbia made us work hard for us win. There's been loads of... Austria are only 1-0 down to France at the moment. It happens.
They did, Dave. They did. But on that performance last night, we will not win this Euros.
Oh no, we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't. But you grow into
a tournament, don't you?
Yeah, you do. But next game against Denmark, it's only my personal opinion. But I'd like to. I think he'll play the same team, and I agree. I will play the same team. I can't disagree with really any of you on that. I just want him to think, you know what? When we've gone 1-0 up, let's go kill them off. Let's go for 2, 3, and 4, and let's put an actual statement down in the tournament and go, do you know what? Anybody wants to go toe to toe with us, then let's have a good boxing game.
What I will say, I mean, well, that needs clipping up. That's immense. But I think there's a few things in here. One, for me, and my backside is probably going to be painful because it probably feels like I'm sitting on the fence a little bit, but hear me out. I think there's an argument here where Southgate needs to be a little bit brave with his tactics and his substitutions during the game, not at the beginning of the game, because I think, to be honest, I was quite happy with how we started.
Yeah,
I think he needs to be a little bit brave with how we can do to stretch that Serbian team, because they were sat in a low block, they were proving difficult to break down. We've struggled against teams who've had a low block before, and we needed to stretch and expand that game a little bit more. I think there's a little bit more bravery from Southgate that's needed, and I don't think that's just across last night. That happened probably since he's been in charge of England, in my opinion, even though I do rate him in terms of what he's done for the country. For instance, Euro finals, he's got to be a little bit more proactive. I think Serbia tactics at half-time surprised him, and I don't think we reacted quickly enough to that.
No, you're right.
I think there's also an aspect for me where the players need to have a bit more belief in it. I actually agree with what Fabregas said in a way about Foden, that Jude Bellingham's taken that game by the scruff of the neck, and he's taken it, and he's not necessarily carried us, but he's not been far off from carrying us over the line to get what we needed to get done. Yeah. And when he's talking about Foden, you want to see Foden and believe in himself because he's capable of doing it. You know, you look at Alexander-Arnold in there, you know, that belief that he can ping a ball like he sometimes did, the Dyke ball for 50 yards to split the opposition. Bowen had a little bit of belief when he came on to, you know, create that cross for Kane. Gallagher came on with a bit of belief, but I want the players to have that killer instinct, to probably Steve's point, and I get that. I think what I seen with the likes of Germany and Spain, where they've probably impressed more than a lot of other teams, is that actually they've scored some quick fire goals back to back, and then the game's been killed. Exactly. So like Germany scored twice in 10 minutes. I think Spain scored about twice in 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah. And I think that's your point in it, Steve, that it's almost like an immediate follow-up, where I think sometimes we're just, I don't think the game was there for us yesterday. I think we got kicked about a bit. I actually think that was real physical. I think it was more of a physical battle than what Spain and Germany have gone through. Yeah. But I think what I will say is that from a first game perspective, yes, there's a lot of stuff that we can pick, and I mean, crikey, you two have done. But I think there's also a bit where I think Dave's right. You do start going that tournament, and I think actually from a team perspective, we're probably going out today actually feeling quite leggy and a bit tired, but actually thinking, you know what, it's kind of that bit of hard work and suffering's got us through that game, and we might need to count on that a little bit more. But I agree, we need to play better, and I think Southgate needs to be a little bit more shrewd and a bit more wiser to how the game's panning out, or maybe going to pan out, instead of just sticking with a tried and trusted all the time to get him over the line.
I'm not saying you're wrong, Chris. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I just think we saw the game slightly differently, particularly in the second half yesterday. I agree with what Brownie's said. And basically he said that he'd have taken Kane off. Now, I wanted to... right, so Kane had to come back, and because we were sat back. If they'd have had Watkins on, right, who stretches the play, who's on the last defender, it gives the defender something else to worry about. They didn't have to worry about Harry because they know he's going to be in front of them all the time, going back deeper, you know, collecting the ball off Jude, who I think at times Jude sort of told Harry to get out the way, which I quite liked as well, by the way. But I'd have just had something a bit different on in that second half. That's my only point. I think, you know, Watkins does give that compared to what Kane and Tony does.
What I will say is, because we've probably massively overrun from what we said we were going to do, is there's a lot of things worse than a scruffy 1-0 win, and that's where we are. And for us to be having a bit of a moan and groan after a 1-0 win in the first group game, when we have put ourselves in a prime position to get that group, and also bearing in mind Slovenia and Denmark drew as well, so that's the best result we could have hoped for. In fairness, when you take the emotion out of it, that's actually a perfect day for us yesterday.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's coming home, boys. It's coming home.
Well, there we go. let's just before we do wrap up, let's look ahead then. I mean, quick, short answers here. Would you make any changes to the side going and face Denmark then, Lou?
No, I wouldn't. I'd keep it the same. I'd keep it the same, but what I would like to see is, again, like I said earlier, maybe a few tweaks to how we set up, because it's not going to be as much as a physical battle as Serbia was. I want it to be a little bit more controlled in our aggression in how we go about the attacking style of play. Ironically, I know I'm waffling here, but my point was last Monday, I said it would be ironic if we defended really well and our attacking wise were a little bit off shape.
Yes, you
That's
did.
exactly what we were doing. Yeah. That's exactly what happened last night. We just need a little bit of balance between the system. But I think listen, the guys have gone out there and won us a game, so I wouldn't change it. Tournament football is about momentum, and we need to keep that going.
Let's just call you Mystic Sale, eh?
He's like the asparagus, isn't he?
Oh, Jesus, not this again. Dave, looking forward to Thursday and the game against Denmark. I mean, to be fair for me, I don't think Denmark are going to sit in with that low block like Serbia did yesterday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think Denmark will prove a bigger test than Serbia. I mean, you've sort of already said what I've already said. They're not going to be as physical. They're still going to have to foul Bellingham to stop him. Yeah. I think every team's going to be a bit the same. So it's whether referees are going to clamp down on that or how long it'll take them to clamp down. If it didn't work in Southgate, I think needs to react a little bit quicker with his subs. I know I'm going back over the Serbia game, but he left them. He seemed to leave them a little bit late. So if you've seen it isn't working, I think he needs to change it a bit quicker. But we just can't. I think we'll win. I think we'll beat Denmark. We can't discredit the fact that the former winners in the last tournament, they were semi-finalists. You know, we had to beat them to get to the final, and it was a close game. And there was Sterling had a sort of a bit of a dodgy decision for the penalty. It could have gone either way. You know, they might have a little bit more fire in the bellies that we haven't really factored in. They might,
that's fair.
They might see that as an injustice and really want to put us to the sword Thursday. But again, when you've got Bellingham in your side and you've got like your Fodens, and I mean, we've talked about it over and over. Everybody's talked about it. There's just nobody. You know what I mean? There's nobody better.
Gaz?
Well, maybe France.
Yeah, I can't say anything different to what Dave and Lou have said. Really,
go on, then.
It might shock you a little bit with my Liverpool leanings, but it won't happen. But I mentioned it briefly before. I'd like to see Wharton in there next to Rice at some point. Probably more of a long-term thing, because I think particularly for this tournament, I think Southgate's nailed these colours to the mast. He's gonna stick with Trent in there at the start, and then maybe later in the tournament we might see Gallagher in there. But long term, Wharton has to could be that man for me. I think we will improve. I'd like to think we will anyway. Denmark, Dave said, there'll be a tougher test. I don't know a lot about Danish football and the players. I don't know how the team really compares to the one in 2021. But I think there'll be a different test. I think what you've all said there is that they'll come out and play a little bit more. They won't sit as deep as Serbia did at the start of the game. And I think I mentioned it seems a while ago now when we first started talking about England. I think they shocked us. I think Lou mentioned it as well. They came out and played, especially after we'd gone 1-0 up. I don't think we were necessarily prepared for that. Hopefully we will be prepared for Denmark playing a little bit more. As Dave nailed it, people are going to have to keep kicking Bellingham to stop him.
Yeah. Downsy, then score predictions for Thursday for the England game against Denmark. Go.
Stop Damsgaard, stop Eriksson, and stop Højlund, and I think you stop Denmark. So I'm going to go for an England 3, Denmark 1 on my birthday.
Very well, Dave. Prediction?
I think 2-0 or 2-1 to England.
Gaz?
Something else I wanted to mention there. Downsy mentioned it. Yeah, stop Damsgaard. I think he's a key player for them. 2-1 England.
And Lou, I assume that you're making a note of these somewhere.
No, not yet.
We'll take you back off the video. What are you thinking then?
I'd like to say 1-0. I think it'll be 1-0, or if not, I'll say 1-1. and I'd be happy with a 1-1 draw against them. But I'm going to be positive and go 1-0.
If we can qualify, it gives us the Slovenia game to have a bit of a tinker, doesn't it?
Yeah,
does a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's not going to be a bad thing for us also.
No.
But also, you know what? It wouldn't surprise you probably the way Southgate does operate, that he'll keep a similar squad and get momentum going again and keep it going.
I'd be genuinely intrigued to look back actually at the last 3 tournaments and the group stages and that kind of third game if we've already qualified and actually see how many changes that Southgate did make. Maybe I'll look into that for next week's show. I'm going to go for a 2-1 England win on for that one. And finally, just be very quickly before we wrap up, tomorrow, the final round of match day 1 games comes to a conclusion. Turkey versus Georgia is at 5, and Portugal versus Czechia is at 8. A first opportunity to see Roberto Martinez fall flat on his face. I mean, Portugal will probably win.
Turkey are not a bad side, you know.
Well, that's fine, but they're playing Georgia, but you're right.
Oh, right. Well, sorry, Czechia are quite a good side, aren't they?
They've got some individuals, but when I've always, I don't know why, I've always liked the Czech Republic as a nation, but I think that's because growing up, it was when they had like Pavel Nedved, Thomas Rosicky, Petr, they had great names. They're just not at that level anymore.
Barros.
Yeah, exactly. Milan Barros.
I can't get used to calling it Czechia, by the way. I know that's a muted point, but it's Czech Republic in it.
I mean, as regards Czechia, you'll be able to remember the likes of Karel Poborský and before then, won't you?
Yeah, 1996, they were the surprise package, weren't they? I think Germany beat them in the group stage, but then had to beat them again in the final. And Karel Poborský, Patrick Berger both went on to play in the Premier League. 2 decent attacking midfielders. You mentioned
Jan Koller. You know, I
was just going to come on. You mentioned Barros, but Barros was very much part of a partnership with Jan Koller, who big man, little man type thing. Barros had his head down a lot when he was at Liverpool, but he'd run all day. And Koller was an absolute unit. And yeah, good strike partnership. You mentioned earlier about I've not seen the France game. I can't really see it from where I am. Is it still 1-0?
It is still 1-0. Very nearly 2, but still 1.
So France, we're on about who's impressed us so far. Obviously, Germany. I haven't seen France, but Germany, France, and Portugal were the 3 that I was thinking before. I went for Germany. I'm still sticking with Germany, but I'm looking forward to seeing Portugal tomorrow.
Lou, any thoughts? Turkey, Georgia at 5 o'clock.
Turkey to win. I think Alanoglu was at Inter Milan. I think for me is going to go under the radar. I think for Turkey. And I've put him in my fantasy team, so hopefully he does well. But I think, Georgia, like we said, we've got a couple of players that can change a game. But I think Turkey, if we've got ambitions to get out of that group, probably should be winning tomorrow. And for me, I think Portugal comfortably win the 8 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah, I think that's
Have you got a point yet?
Sure, yeah.
I'm telling you, no. I think we'll all be predicting Portugal and Turkey wins them for tomorrow. However, I think at the start of the day, we all predicted Belgium and Ukraine wins. So it's we're not very good at the prediction, Lark, is what I'm starting to learn over the course of these Euros. We'll wrap it up there, though.
Friends. Don't gamble. Gambling's bad.
Oh, I will end on this hilarious point for the rest of you. Gambling is bad when you put Italy to score first and your bet loses after 23 sodding seconds against Albania. Don't bet, kids. Gamble responsibly, etc., etc.
Yeah, gamble responsibly.
There we go. There's our good deed for the day to end on. Big thank you to Stephen Downes, to Dave Foy, to Lewis Sale, and to Gareth Walker. We might well be back on Thursday doing a little bit of posting the match reviews, so do keep an eye across our social media. Yeah, Lewis doesn't know that. He hasn't checked the group chat where Brownie's just asked about it. So yeah, do check social media for that one. We are, of course, on Twitter, or X is now called, at W Yorks Football, on Facebook as the West Yorkshire Football Show, also on YouTube as well, the West Yorkshire Football Show. Do like and subscribe. If you catch up on this video, leave any comments. We do appreciate all the interaction that we can get. Big thank you to everyone that has commented tonight. But from myself and the rest of the lads, enjoy the rest of match day 1 of the Euros, and we'll be back very soon here on the West Yorkshire Football Show.
Good night. God bless.